Okay, so we went down to the last hole from the inside out. We are now on the outside. So you're going to go around and up through again. And you're going to wrap around. Just like always. But instead of going back into this hole, we are going to go back into the first hole of our next register from the outside in. All right, and then down from the inside out of the second hole in the second register. Pull that tight. Okay. Now, we're going to go through, or we're going to go around that last stitch. Or we're going to go through this stitch and then around the stitch in between the registers. And then back into the hole. Down to the next hole in this register. Loop it under that stitch with the holding the cover on. And then loop around in between the two registers. Back into the hole. All right, 1, 2, 3. Down, all the way down to the next one, past that bit that we kind of skipped. Loop under that stitch holding the cover. Around between the two registers. Pull it tight. Back in between. Next hole, inside out. Catch up that stitch holding the cover. Loop around between the registers. Back inside to the middle. Last hole, inside out. Catch up that loop holding the cover. Around the stitch in between the two registers. Tight. And back to the center. Oh, this is our last hole. Do not go back to the center. So wrap around between the registers, but then go into the next register from the outside. I'm actually going to add a third register so you all can see what it looks like to add a register on top of a register when you don't have when you're away from the cover. So this is my third register. I just came out of the last hole on my second register. I looped around under the stitch holding the cover, and then around between the registers. Pull that tight. I'm going in from the outside into the middle of the next register instead of back into the same one. Pull it through. Go down to the second hole. Okay, so this time I don't have to catch up this stitch. I just have to go in between the last two registers. I go in between the last two registers. So you loop once around the last stitch back from that line you're making, and then in between the current register and the last one. And back to the middle. Next hole. Between the last two registers here. Then between the new register and the last one. Then back into the middle. Jump over to the next hole. Oh, see this big loop here? Somewhere I did not pull my yarn all the way through. So I would actually have to unthread my needle and back this all up in order to fix that. So be very careful that you are checking each time that you pulled your yarn tight. All right, so in between register 1 and 2, I'm just ignoring that loop. And then in between register 3 and 2, back to the middle. Last hole. In between register 1 and 2, under that thread. This loop is in my way. Between the new under the thread between the new register and the previous one. Ignore that loop I messed up. This is the last hole. Do not go back into this register because it's the last hole in this row.